Hello, everybody. I just thought I'd drop in and do my usual outro as an intro for this, brace yourselves, is the last full-length podcast of Showy Ovaries for 2022. Yes, it is true. Be strong. Grieve, however you must. But I do have a show to write and I need to focus a little more on that. But holy shit, are we going out with a bang? This live record at the Suter Theatre for the Nelson Festival of the Arts, which I nearly missed thanks to Air New Zealand cancelling my first flight, was a sheer delight. And thank you so much if you were in the audience, and welcome to listening, because hardly anybody had actually listened to the podcast that was in that audience. But you gave us life with your laughs, squeals, and empathy. And look, I even cried. Why? You'll have to listen to find out. I feel the need to warn you, though, I do sound about as excitable as it is possible to get, particularly at the beginning, and you may want to take your dogs out of the room because of my squealing that's very high-pitched. They might start barking. So gird your various loins for that. I do plan to drop one last ovum mini-sode called My Body, My Voice, which, just like my breasts, will be dropping very soon. But do come and see me in Wellington in November, in Olive Copperbottom, and in Hastings in December with promise and promiscuity. And if you're getting married, get in touch. I could marry you, not as a bigamist, but as a celebrant. Thanks to all my fab guests, thanks to all my wondrous patrons, thanks to my lovely husband, and finally, thanks so much to Nicky Pellegrino, Nicky Bezzant, and the Nelson Festival. Oh, and of course, that squirting lady. Intrigued? Keep listening.
And welcome along to Showy Ovaries Live. Are you excited? Yes! Excellent. Good. Hello, everybody. My name is Penny Ashton, and I'm going to be hosting this event tonight. And it is very exciting to be here because just over a year ago, I was sort of drowning in crumbs and wine bottles on my couch, living in Auckland, where we were locked into our houses since 1812. And I was sitting there, and I was like, my husband was actually a bit worried, because I'm usually quite cheery and stuff, but I was just going, what the fuck is the point anymore? And all this sort of stuff. And he was like, why don't you do that podcast you've been thinking about? Which I had pitched to some other media entities who were obviously idiots and turned it down. So I decided I was going to do it myself, and so that's how Showy Ovaries was born. So who has listened to Showy Ovaries? Make some noise? Yeah! So not very many. That's all right, that's fine. So thank you those that have. This is my 60th podcast now. I have interviewed both of the Nickys before. I've interviewed Jennifer Ward-Leland, Robin Malcolm, Miriam Akamo, Louisa Wall, lots and lots of fabulous women and some trans individuals about their menopauses. And it's just been the most sort of gratifying and amazing journey to come along the way with it. So now I'm going to find out there. So who out there is post-menopausal? Make some noise. You don't sound very excited. Look at that. Who is in the throes of perimenopause, menopause? Make some noise. And who is premenopausal? Make some noise. Excellent, good. And where are the men? Look at that. So we've got some here. Did I hear another one over here? Look at that. Excellent. Oh, good. Look. Welcome. You are not the enemy, regardless of what we're going to say this evening. It is fantastic to have you here, because obviously the only people that shouldn't be interested in menopause are people that don't know a woman. So it's really fantastic that you are here. I will probably be swearing quite a lot this evening, so if you don't like that concept, fuck off right now, I say. Because the patriarchy cannot smash itself by being nice and polite. Am I right? That's right. I am also excited to be here at the Nelson Festival, because I did my first Nelson Festival in 2003. So this is nearly 20 years of coming to this festival. I've done all my solo shows here, and you're just the most voracious eaters of the arts, and I just appreciate that so much. So thanks very much for coming out and supporting the show. Has anyone seen me do a show before? Make some noise. Oh, how nice! Look at at that. Excellent. I don't actually have fridge magnets to sell, fridge magnets. I know, it's really strange, but I don't. But what I'm going to do first, before I bring out our fabulous guests, is I'm going to do a poem for you. So was it WOMAD 2020, which was really weird. It was like 2 weeks before we all went into lockdown, and everybody was like giving everyone a really wide berth. No one quite knew what to do. But I did this poem in the poetry slam that I run at WOMAD. And so many women came up to me afterwards going, oh my God, I've got a dry vagina. All this sort of stuff. And I was like, oh, so women really do want to talk about this, right? We want to talk about our menopauses, right? Yes. That's right. I'm not actually in menopause at all, but when I heard all of these stories, I was incensed that I actually didn't know anything about it. And so that was the impetus for this poem, and I love that since I first did this poem and wrote it 4 years ago, so much has changed. There's so much more in the conversation, so much also to do with the ladies that we have coming on, and everybody out there that's not shutting up about their own personal menopause and spreading the journeys. So that was the inspiration for this poem, and I'm going to do it for you now. And it's because, so I'm actually 48, and at this age, menopause is a bit like, it's like a horror film, you know, like the strings are... It's like I was the girl in the horror film that had sex and took some drugs, and I've gone outside, gone, I'll be back soon. So you know I'm about to get attacked by something, but you just don't know what, right? It's like, what the fuck, I don't know what it is. And that's what I felt like with menopause at 48. So that's the story behind this poem. It's called The Horror. It goes like this. What was that? Did you hear something? I know it's out there. I know it's waiting to pounce. I just don't know what it is. I know there will be blood, but how much blood? Will it be a river, a trickle, a smudge, a tsunami? Will it be The Shining? Carrie? Will I drown on the coagulated defunct gametes of mass reproduction? Making one last-ditch effort to become free estranged eggs, knowing it's all over. Thank you very much, thank you very much. Oh, that's not the end, that's not the end. Nobody seems to know anything. Well, nobody's talking about it. I can feel it coming. It's imminent. Heat in a flash. That will probably start in my vagina and then spread to my every extremity, sending me pink and sweaty into my next business meeting. Sweat. The tears of withering ovaries. Who's there? Is it you? I mean, I know it's almost time. I'm 48. I've had 432 menstrual cycles, give or take a little bit of Depo-Provera. Statistically, I have 3 more years until it happens, but what happens? A dry vagina? Probably because it's so hot. Anxiety and trouble sleeping? Because my vagina is hot. Sexual dysfunction? Because my vagina is hot. An addled brain? Did I mention that my vagina was hot? Ah! Fuck, what the fuck will happen? Ask your mother, they say. Well, she had a hysterectomy at 40 and then 36 years of hot flushes. And they have the temerity to say that women are the weaker sex. 20% of women have no symptoms. 60% have mild symptoms. So let's all focus on that. But then my friend nearly died from lack of blood. Do you know what? Fuck you, menopause. Fuck you. I'm not scared of you. Really, I'm not. And I will not go silently into that red hot night. And I will certainly not stop talking about it. And one more thing. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I feel hot. Oh, it's starting. Oh, sorry, false alarm. It's just COVID. It's not. I don't have COVID, absolutely. So anyway, that was the poem. Thank you very much. Nothing like forcing your own applause. Excellent. Right, so I think you've probably had enough of me, and let's bring on these other 2 fabulous ladies. So I want you to, it's like a rock concert, okay? So these are the New Zealand rock stars of menopause. So I want to give them lots of cheering and squealing and clapping and all that sort of thing to bring them on. So let's just start a little bit gently. Come on, let's start right away. And then bring it up. Bring it up. Come on, make some noise. Nicky Pellegrino and Nicky Bezzant. Come on. Here we go. Take a seat. Oh my gosh, it's all very exciting. So here we are.
I'm excited.
You're excited? Good. And your good self?
Oh, it's so excited.
It's so excited to be here. Fantastic. So these two ladies have written these two books here. We have, this one is Nicky Pellegrino's book, Don't Sweat It, How to Make the Change a Good One. And this changes everything, The Honest Guide to Menopause and Perimenopause. So who's read these books? Make some noise. Who's going to buy these books after this? Excellent. Great. Cool. Well, I've got a couple of bios for them both, so I'm going to read that for you now so we get a little bit more background. So starting with Nicky Pellegrino, has been a journalist for almost 4 decades. Currently, as a freelancer, she writes about health and science each week for the Listener magazine. Her book about menopause, Don't Sweat It, was on the New Zealand bestseller list, and she's also the author of 13 best-selling novels. She lives in Auckland with a husband, an adopted greyhound, and a lot of books. 2 years post-menopause, she is still... Oh, I thought you said she's still hot. She's still hot. But she also still has hot flushes and insomnia, but is in a much better mood now. Yes. And also, so your book was in the bestseller list as well as your your fiction book being in the bestseller list at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is phenomenal. So can we have a round of applause to welcome that? Absolutely. And here we have Nicky Bezzant, who is an award-winning journalist, editor, and author who has built a reputation for translating complex health and science into easy-to-understand, useful information. Nicky has been involved in New Zealand media for over 20 years. She recently edited Thrive magazine and was the founding editor of the Healthy Food Guide. She is a frequent contributor to top print, online, and broadcast media. Her book, This Changes Everything, was published in 2022. Nicky is passionate about women's health, especially empowering midlife women to become vibrant, kick-ass old ladies. And she has also been talking to lots of groups currently around the country and businesses about menopause as well. So another round of applause, please. Excellent. So I just thought we'd actually just start talking about the process of writing the book, etc. So why don't we start? How was writing the book? What was the inspiration?
I've been thinking about writing an article for the Listener about it because I'd seen that stuff was happening. The change was changing.
Right.
So
people were talking about it.
Yeah, particularly in the UK, all of a sudden there was stuff being talked about and happening. And then actually an editor came and said to me, would you like to write a book? And I went, yeah, not really fully thinking through the immense amount of work that it was and the hours and hours and hours of trying to sift through all the science, make sense of it all, because there's so many opposing views and opinions.
And stuff that hasn't been researched.
So much stuff that hasn't been researched with women's health as a whole. And I also bothered everybody I knew. Like, on just random people I met, I'd kind of go, Penny, how's your menopause? And you'd say, I'm actually not having any symptoms. And I'd be like, but you are.
I mean, I was like that too. I asked Helen Clark to be on my podcast. She turned me down. So did Julia Gillard.
I asked Helen Clark as well to be in my book.
Yeah, she doesn't. She doesn't like to put herself out about things like that because people attack her so much. Which is, I know, isn't that sad? I thought that was rubbish.
But lots of women did talk to me on and off the record, and you too, Nicky, I think. I was actually amazed how many women would talk to me about their anxiety, their loss of confidence, thinking that they had dementia, their driver, people just would, I don't know, it was like this lahar of Bezzant people that had been
volcanic
for too
pouring
long.
out.
Yeah, and so it was, from that perspective, much easier than I thought, because you almost couldn't stop people talking about it.
Yeah, that's like when that woman just marched straight up to me after I did that poem, just to immediately tell me about her dry vagina at WOMAD. And I was like, okay, so yeah. Right, okay, and what about for you?
Yeah, I had a similar experience, actually. When I put the call out just amongst my networks and on social media and stuff for women who would talk to me about their experiences, it was the same thing. I was really kind of touched by the intimate things that women would tell me about their sex life, their relationships, their vagina, the whole thing, their mental health. That was actually the first thing that people wanted to talk about was the depression, anxiety, all of those kind of mental health things.
Because I do think that was one of the things I was most surprised that I didn't know about. That so many women have been prescribed antidepressants when actually they didn't need it. And some do, and obviously, but that is such a quintessential symptom of menopause that no one seemed to be talking about.
Yeah, I didn't really know that myself either, because I mean the process was a little similar in the sense that it was more about I started this when I was 49. So I was just, this kind of thing of menopause was just starting to appear on the radar amongst my friends. It was just starting to come up. And I realised I knew nothing about it, pretty much nothing, even though I've been writing about health for 20 years.
Yeah, and both in the magazine industry, which is like so many women of menopausal ages.
But when I went looking for books on it, the stuff that was out there was sort of, it didn't speak to me. Right. It didn't speak to me as a Gen X woman who does not feel like a frumpy old lady, because a lot of that stuff was a little bit positioned that way. Yeah. And it didn't say to me, this is what you're going through. I felt like there needed to be something else for us, for our generation. Yeah, and for the women coming after.
Yes. I mean, I feel like Gen X has gotten to this point and just gone, what the fuck?
Really?
Seriously, why did nobody tell us about this?
Yeah.
Am I right? It's like you've just gone how did we get to this point that there's so much and it's enormous and it happens to half of the population? Like, I've actually genuinely been quite angry, which probably isn't helpful. I don't know.
Oh, a little bit of anger.
Yeah, a little bit of, Well, that's true. We can't be, as I say, the patriarchy won't smash itself by us being nice. But and that's why, and I think maybe it's because we're so used to having information at our fingertips with the internet.
Oh, and look, we are benefiting from that generation of feminists that went ahead of us.
Yep.
They fought for us to get educated. We've had careers. We're digitally well, I'm not that digitally savvy, but some people are. And I just think we've been used to having an awful lot more control and being listened to. And we're not going to shuffle off into invisibility and be frumpy old ladies. I think we need to just reclaim the whole idea of what old is.
Yeah.
And rebrand old.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also, I mean, it is about what old is, but also 50 is so not old.
I'm 58.
So you're old.
I'm old.
So actually, you're 58 and you are...
I'm 52.
And 52, and I'm 48.
So old is relative, isn't it, really?
Well, and that's it. And also, I think it's been interesting that we're trying to sort of figure this out when we talked for my podcast was... When we were younger and looking at women in their 50s and thinking they were old, were they not, were we being ageist, or has society's definition of age changed a little bit? I think we were probably being ageist, and maybe it's a combination of those things, because we have longer lifespans now and things like that.
Yeah, and longer health spans. People are healthier for longer.
Yeah.
I do think when I look at pictures of my grandmother at 50, she did look like an old lady.
Right.
But my mother at 50, when I look at that, she didn't really. She looks sort of a bit like I look now, but I probably perceived that she was old. Was old.
Yeah.
So there is definitely an ageism thing.
Since the books have come out, have you had a lot of great feedback and a lot of people wanting to talk to you more about
Amazing feedback, yeah.
The thing that really shocked me was the number of women, some women that I know who are successful and smart and quite influential, emailed me and said, I've just been struggling so badly. And I read your book and I realised there was something I could do about it.
Oh, great.
And I've just been... And I sort of, one particular woman has had 2 major careers. And I find it so hard to believe that menopause had come along and knocked her sideways like that.
Yeah.
And her confidence had obviously been eroded to such a point that she didn't think, right, what am I going to do about this? She just was flawed. So... And those women, both of them went and got HRT.
Yeah, right.
And... feel heaps better.
But you don't have to put up with things. But also as women, we're often told that being a woman is painful, right? So periods are painful, sex is painful, supposedly the first time often is. But it's this whole narrative around women and pain and childbirth and stuff. And so people think that just sort of continues through. And my big thing that I keep saying is I just can't believe that the very reproductive system that peoples the world has been the thing that's traditionally been used to hold us down. So we weren't allowed to go out in public when we were pregnant. We had to quit our jobs. We, are not allowed to talk about periods and period poverty. And now this seems to be the last taboo, even though it is the actual system that makes everybody. Anyway, and that just sort of blows my mind, that we should be celebrated for that and not sidelined. So there. Right, okay, cool. So now we're going to talk about, because the thing with Showy Ovaries, one thing I've tried to do with it is tell people's personal stories. So I'm going to ask these ladies some personal stories about themselves. And the question I always ask at the beginning of Showy Ovaries is, what's the relationship with your body been like through your life, and what journey has that been on? So we're just going to touch on this a little bit with these ladies. And I remember I particularly liked a quote that Nicky said to me, which was, you could have powered a small nation with the amount of energy you put into being worried about your weight.
I had a terrible relationship with food, probably from my teens onwards. So I'm super tall, and I was a tall, skinny kid. And then in puberty, I kind of gained a bit of weight. And then that was the start of, I would either eat all the things or eat nothing.
Right.
You know? And I was constantly thinking, what have I eaten? What should I eat? Counting calories, eating really horrible things. Rivitas with cottage cheese.
Cottage cheese. I thought that cottage cheese was so big in the 80s.
Oh, so disgusting. And it was the era, I grew up in the kind of Charlie's Angels, supermodel era.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was what I was supposed to look like.
Yeah.
So I think that was probably a lot of it. But it really changed for me in my 40s, and I completely can't explain why. Maybe it just occurred to me that I was never going to look like Cindy Crawford, belatedly. And I suddenly just started having normal meals and taking pleasure in food and having healthy snacks. I mean, not eating whatever I wanted, still eating healthily, but actually giving my body the nourishment it needed. And I actually I probably lost about 10 kilos in my 40s, really, really slowly, without trying to. And so I'm super against being on a diet, because I just think that's where the starvation binge thing happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now, ironically, my knees don't work properly, my hips are banjaxed, you know, the whole thing's falling apart, but I like it heaps more than I did when it was fully operational.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. And I like how you said that your arms have pleats now.
Oh, God.
Not to bring up a triggering thing, sorry.
I'm looking like an Issey Miyake dress. But I sort of don't mind. Well, no, I do mind a bit. Like, you know, I'm not going to go out in a bikini or anything. I'm going to cover it up.
I still wear bikinis because, when you've got massive knockers, it's actually better to have them hoisted than down around your knees. In a one piece, it's just not pleasing. It's just like a teardrop. Anyway, so yeah, I prefer the for myself personally. That's right. Okay, good. Excellent. Well, that's great that you had that. You know, because I was the same. Like I've talked about this on my podcast a bit, but I was diagnosed epileptic when I was 16, and I got put on drugs, and they made me hungry. And I didn't find out for 16 years that was why I was hungry. So then I was going to Jenny Craig and being told, you know, only eat when you're hungry. And I get emotional about it because I was always hungry and I was always doing what I was told. And so I was just dieting. And then once I let all of that go, I feel a bit better about myself. Yeah, I know, give me sympathy. No, I cried on stage a few times and I've hated it. But it's this shit just gets in. The stuff that we've had conditioned into us, and it just gets so deep into us, even though we know it's bullshit. It's hard to get out. And you said that you're feeling very confident within yourself now, more so than when you were younger as well.
Yeah, I don't hate me. I don't have experience of diets or massive knockers, actually.
But we don't hate you.
Really,
we don't.
I have always liked my body.
Great.
I've always been happy in it, and I think I have treated it. I treat it well.
Yes, you do.
I nourish it and look after it.
Yeah.
I've never had a weight issue. That's not been a thing for me.
Yeah.
But I have always had a confidence issue.
Right.
I would say.
Okay.
Until probably my 40s, funnily enough. You know, when I felt and still feel more confident about my body and myself than I ever have.
Right. And what do you think what was the tipping point?
Oh, I think you just get to know yourself, don't you, maybe? As you get a bit older, you give fewer fucks.
Yeah.
You start to really back yourself and just think, this is who I am. And
and you really sort of come into, well, for me, it was like, I don't know, like realising, I don't want to sound arrogant, but I'm a bit clever, you know, and and sort of coming into that when it takes a while for you to just go, no, actually, this is who I am and I can achieve these things. Yeah, and I'm not going to listen, because
it's other people's opinions
too.
But
what about imposter syndrome?
Oh, yeah, well, we all have that.
Yeah, I think that the human brain is so shittily put together that we have this fundamental thing that second guesses everything that we do within ourselves. Like, what the fuck is that about?
I had really bad imposter syndrome when I was going through the real mood swings of menopause, except the person I was pretending to be was me. Because I just lost myself completely. I was just in such a bad mood and wanted to kill everybody. But I'd go out into the world and I'd just be all nice. I was just faking it. There was nothing nice left.
Really?
Yeah. Pure hatred.
Pure rage. Oh my God. And who did you take that out on?
Well, you're recording this, aren't you? There were a couple of people I couldn't see because I just thought I was going to crush them like bugs. So I just backed away. I did shout at people in my local grocery store quite a lot.
Yes. This is your Farrow Fresh experience.
Yeah, a man accused me of queue jumping, and I went, "Oh, sorry, I didn't realise. You go ahead." And he said to me, "You're very rude." And I went, "Show you rude." He wasn't a tall man, and I am a giantess, and I loomed over him and said, "You're an angry old white man." And he went, "I'm not angry." And then I got outside and just went, whoa. Don't know where that came from, but it was actually quite magnificent.
So that was you giving less fucks too, of course, wasn't it?
And then when the whole COVID thing happened, I was in the same shop. They still let me shop
It's a triggering shop, Farrow
and
Fresh.
everyone was queuing
How much?
wrong.
How much? Yeah.
Everybody was just not on the marks on the floor, and I was like, right, you people, you. And I reorganised the entire queue. People weren't happy about it. Some of them were like, no, I was ahead of her, and I'm like, I don't care.
So you turned into a very efficient queue monster.
But that was 2 years ago now. I'm really nice.
Okay, we're going to get to symptoms, but before we do that, I've asked both Nickies to prepare some sort of definitions of things I'm going to throw over to you for menopause. So can you just tell us what menopause is, for those who don't know?
Well, the interesting thing about menopause, or perimenopause, which is the first, is sort of like stealthy harbinger of menopause, is that you don't know you're having it. It's not like a piece of ticker tape comes out of your ear saying, you are now perimenopausal, shit will happen. So what is happening to your body is your estrogen's starting to go up and down, your ovaries aren't producing it in a reliable fashion anymore, your progesterone is going into a more sort of graceful swan dive. And your body has got really used to having these hormones do their thing for years and years and years, particularly estrogen, because there's estrogen receptors all over the body.
It's like 300 or something?
Loads.
Yeah.
Just I'm not a numbers person.
Okay, right. Yeah,
Loads.
okay.
Shitloads. So
Shitloads.
you get the first symptoms, which for me were migraines, weird itchiness, the rage. But I honestly had no idea what was happening to me, and it wasn't like it happened to me when I was young, but I guess I just didn't want it to happen. So, and crazy periods, like, you never knew when you were going to have one, and then when you did, build an ark, because time was rising. And then I remember, actually, I was at a book launch, and I went up to Linda Hallinan, the gardening writer, and went, Jess, it's so hot in here. And she went, it's not hot, Nikki. And I went, do you think? She went, yes. So then that's when you can't ignore it, when the hot flushes start. And for me, that came with its evil twin, insomnia. And then you hit menopause, which is officially a year after your final period. But even that is tricky because you might not have a period for months and months and months, and then one just comes. I think the longest I got was probably 4 months, and I threw all my tampons out.
Had a party.
Slipped into my white trousers. I was like, this is my new life, and then back it came. So it takes a while for that to happen. Once you're postmenopausal, you might still have hot flushes. Usually they will start to, the whole process takes an average of 7 years. So.
An average of 7 years. Right, okay.
And,
yes.
And then
the young people are going, what?
And then the parting gift.
The parting gift, yes.
Postmenopause tends to be that your vagina atrophies.
Yes.
Oh, stop it. No,
Or
the
as I
atrophy.
prefer to say, the lady garden needs a little watering.
Yes. I mean, the term vaginal atrophy, people don't use it anymore, do they? Because
No,
it's so
thank
horrifying.
God. It must have been invented by a man.
Yes.
But they use GSM now, which is only marginally better, which stands for genitourinary syndrome of menopause.
That's a mouthful.
It is,
yes.
But it is more accurate because it describes the whole area, not just the vagina.
Yes, because it can be the whole area. Yes, indeed. Right, well, so your symptoms there with those, they were the main ones?
Yeah, I think I probably had a couple of other things that I just didn't really realised were happening to me, because I'm not very in touch with my body most of the time.
All right.
So I think stuff probably happened and I just didn't realise
Right,
what
okay.
it was.
Because there are about 30, well, they say 34, but then there's...
My list has got 42 on it, but every time I turn around on social media, there's another
There's a
thing.
new one.
Yes.
Yeah, to add to the
Yes,
list.
like
so.
my friend Judine is here. Her eyes were streaming constantly when she started in menopause. And there's things like you can feel like you've got ants crawling under your skin.
Yeah.
You can feel like you've got electric shocks in your head. You can get thinning hair, dry mouth, bad breath. It just goes on. And this is not a guarantee. This is just some of them. We don't want to freak everybody out. Yeah. So what sort of symptoms have you had? Because you're still in the
I'm
throes.
still in the middle of perimenopause. Actually, I think I'm in late perimenopause. I'm at the stage that you were describing, really, which is where the periods get very erratic. And so the longest gap I've had so far has been 4.5 months. I haven't thrown away my period undies. I've still got them.
You have the period undies?
I like them.
Oh, right.
I feel really ripped off, actually, that for 30 years of menstruation, I had to keep buying disposable period products, and now there's this great solution. As I'm heading off.
Yeah, I bought a cup. I used the cup for about 1.5 years.
Oh, no.
I know, it's a very fleshy enterprise, a cup.
No.
It's very visceral, you're like, yeah. And I think I sort of got into it when perimenopause, because that's the only thing I've really got personally is like my cycle went a bit erratic and I was, as I call it, double plugging some nights. So then I was like, I'm going to try this cup, and I think I was just, my cup overflowing. And it is, and then you're just like, oh,
I can't be
like
doing
this
the
sort of,
cup.
yeah, it's a lot. So the period underpants are good.
Yes, but I have to have them with me at all times. So obviously I've brought them here when I've travelled to Nelson, because you just never know when another period is going to show up.
Right.
Which is very typical for this point in perimenopause. It's just annoying because you think, don't you? You think, oh, I'm going to get to that magical 1 year mark and then woohoo. Yeah. But no.
Because I'm almost like, I'm a bit worried about what perimenopause might bring and things like that. So, and my period has been I've been very lucky, very sort of, one ibuprofen and then we're all fine. So I would rather just that kept going.
But you might not have.
I know I might not.
Have those symptoms.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 20% of people have no symptoms.
25.
Yeah.
Oh, 25.
Yeah. That's
Oh,
what
I
they
thought
say.
1 in 5. Same.
Same. Right. Okay. Cool. Right. Okay. So,
So
yes.
so that's one thing, and then the brain fog is a big one for me. So the forgetting of names of things that you know very well.
I just heard a
and
whole
places
from the audience there.
And you
So
know
we all
what?
got some brain fog.
It's so irritating. And the other day I forgot David Bowie. I was describing to my friend the movie that I had seen days before, like 2 days before, the David Bowie movie. Have you guys seen it? It's really good. And I said, I went to see this movie the other night and I think you'd really like it. And it was about that guy, that musician, really famous musician, who was really kind of avant-garde. I was like charades.
Yeah,
it was like,
and you couldn't remember Ziggy
I could not
Stardust?
remember his name.
Right.
And that was what tipped me into seeking some HRT, to be honest. It was the David Bowie made me do it.
Oh, so are you looking at HRT now?
I am on it now.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
development from our podcast. I love that. That's the name of your next book. David Bowie made me do it.
David Bowie made me do it. Yeah, I like it.
Right, well, that is a good segue because HRT is hormone replacement therapy. And I was going to get Nikki to talk to us about that, so that's excellent because there was a big study called the WHI study that did a disservice to a couple of generations of women with the conclusions that they drew around HRT, particularly for like my mother's generation and things like that. So would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so HRT, which has now sort of been rebranded as MHT, but we all know it as HRT. It's the same thing. Probably people still have this thing in their head that it causes breast cancer, right? Yeah, we have that in our head because of this study, the Women's Health Initiative study, which was done in the late 90s. And it was a big study of many women. And it was actually a study on HRT, but it wasn't looking at whether HRT was effective in terms of menopause symptoms. They actually already knew that. They knew that HRT was good for the symptoms of menopause. They were looking at other things. They were looking at other potential benefits of HRT because they had already seen that there was a potential benefit to heart health, to I think bowel cancer prevention and a few other things.
Dementia?
No, I don't think that was I don't think dementia was
bone
mentioned.
health?
Bone health, yeah,
right.
osteoporosis, yeah.
And of course, this was also a different type of HRT as well. This was made from pregnant mare's urine.
It was an earlier form of HRT, which was in fact derived from
Pregnant mares.
Pregnant, yep.
Yep.
So they were, and they were. What happened was that the study was, an arm of the study was halted early in 2002 because of what they identified as a risk of breast cancer amongst the participants in that study. It was a internet era, almost not pre-internet, but early internet era and a pre-social media era. And the way that the study was interpreted, first of all, and then reported, was very misleading and actually wrong, which we've subsequently learned. But the effect of that was that women just threw away their pills.
Yeah.
Doctors stopped prescribing this because it was too scary and
some of them got sued.
too dangerous to prescribe. There were lawsuits that came up, of course. And then a whole sort of generation of education and research around women's health, around hormone health, around menopause just stopped.
Yeah.
So it was really, women were left on their own
Yeah.
to just deal with menopause however they could, but without the effective treatment of HRT.
And there's stuff around the fact that a lot of medications had never been tested on women because they've gone, oh, you've got hormones and that makes it difficult, so we just won't test it on you at all, which has sometimes led to women dying from using medications that hadn't been tested properly on women. Anyway, back to you.
Yeah, anyway. So we're sort of still dealing a little bit with the hangover of that. There's still a lack of knowledge or a knowledge gap in some medical practitioners. And I don't want to be bagging on GPs. They've got a really, really hard job to do, and it's very difficult to keep on top of all the stuff. But there's not a lot of education for medical professionals still on menopause.
And they have to keep their minds open. That's one thing. There's yes, they were done a disservice because they weren't educated.
The system is a bit messed up for them.
Yeah.
But the problem is now women seeking treatment don't always get the best possible treatment. What we know now about HRT is that it is extremely effective treatment for the main symptoms of menopause. It could be potentially beneficial for some other things that happen, and the risk is low for most women. Everyone's different. Everyone's risk profile is different.
Yeah.
But for most women who are healthy, who start HRT at the right age, so before the age of 60 or within 10 years of your last period, it is safe. It is a safe treatment. There's a very low risk of breast cancer. And in fact, the risk is lower than for some other activities that we might be doing, like drinking alcohol or not exercising or being overweight or having obesity. So relatively the risk is very low.
Yeah, so it's about the same as having 2 glasses of wine a day.
Yeah, not even 2.
Not even 2, right. And I like that you decided that you wanted wine and not HRT.
I did think. Hormones? Wine.
Yeah, and fair. And you've gone with the HRT.
Well, I think probably both is a good thing. Not drinking and taking.
Oh, no, I was going to say, okay, I'm going to drink and have HRT if that's what you're recommending. No, right, okay, cool. So how long have you been on HRT?
Oh, only for a few weeks now, so it's very early in the
Have you noticed anything yet?
I think that I am sleeping better. I didn't have bad sleeps before, but the sleep feels very deep, which I think is probably the progesterone aspect of the HRT.
Right.
I think the brain fog is lifting.
Amazing.
I am excited to say.
Yeah.
I haven't forgotten any major megastars' names in the last couple of weeks, so that is good. The joint, I was having quite a bit of joint pain and muscle pain, and also the other thing for me was recovery from exercise. I was finding quite a lot more difficult, which are things that do happen as well, and I think that might take a bit longer.
Right.
Although possibly the exercise recovery is getting a bit better.
Right, okay.
But it's sort of like the jury's still out for me yet. It's a bit early, probably.
So, because you did edit the healthy food guide, and a very clean living sort of lady, so you know that...
that makes me sound like some sort of abstemious schoolmistress.
Oh, I think I'm clever, but I don't know what that means. Abstemious? Abstemious. No, I don't know that one. Okay, good.
Prissy.
Sorry?
Carry on.
Bossy. Right. No.
Prissy, like,
Oh, prissy. Right. Well, I mean, that is your... Well, I was going to say your brand, but that is how you... No.
You're digging this hole deeper and deeper, Penny.
I didn't mean prissy, I mean healthy food guide is your brand.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Healthy. I'll take healthy.
Healthy,
Yeah.
yes. So,
yes.
So there is HRT, but you have also talked about the other things that you can do.
Yeah.
So that's why I was segueing into exercise.
Yeah. So HRT is not lifestyle replacement therapy. So you don't take HRT instead of doing all these other great things that you need to do, like really getting serious about exercise.
So weight
cleaning
exercise is good, isn't it?
Yeah, strength training.
And what is what's your regimen?
Well, I now do one session a week with a trainer.
Okay.
Which is, I mean, I'd love to do 2, but that's one session's all I can afford. That's a budget thing.
Yeah.
And then I do 1 or 2 other workouts myself at home with weights.
So 3 a week.
2 to 3 a week.
2 to 3 a week,
yeah,
right.
So not like every day,
Okay.
because you need to have time to recover.
This is good to know.
You can't be doing weights every day, especially not. You need to do heavier lifting. You can't just be doing like those little tiny little pink weights.
I've got 4 kilo weights.
Yeah, 4 kilos. That's good.
Gosh. I got those from Kmart during lockdown.
Yeah, I mean, and you start.
Yeah, I sent off for them.
I did that too.
Yeah, I've been a member of Les
Me
Mills
too.
for a really.
We all did that. Yeah.
We're all like, look
I
at
mean,
that.
you start where you start, but the idea is to build, to not just keep on with the little weights. You need to progress so that you're doing some hard work.
Yeah.
With your weight training.
Yeah, I've been doing that sort of half an hour, getting a bit of sweat on. I'm listening to menopause podcasts.
Oh,
Look at me.
perfect.
And
yeah.
Shakespeare podcast because
Yeah.
I'm going to do a Shakespeare show.
And so then the rest of the time I do a couple of good walks a week in the morning, getting outside in the morning light, getting the light in my eyes, good for my sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's not too arduous, is it?
Yeah, and then just incidental. I have at least a couple of rest days a week, and I will have just incidental exercise on those days. So you've got to give yourself time to recover.
Right, okay, cool. So now I have a friend who has the BRCA gene, and there is some stuff around that if you have the BRCA gene, which means that you're more susceptible to breast cancer and ovarian cancer, that if you actually have all your breast tissue removed and your ovaries removed, you can go on HRT. But my friend is quite reticent to do that, as you can understand, because practically every woman in her family has passed away because of cancer. So she's always looking for alternatives, and she's got really sore joints, particularly right now. So I was wondering if either of you had any great ideas or alternative, that you can do maybe to HRT and things like that.
I mean, there's tons of other things, and
Yeah.
I think we probably in both books have got a range of options, right? So
Yeah.
it's not all about HRT. For everything that might happen to you, there are lots and lots of different things that you can do, starting from lifestyle and management stuff, going all the way through to medication.
Right.
And probably you need to do more than one of those things. you
Yeah.
know? It's not just one thing,
Yeah,
one
yeah, yeah.
solution. There's always going to be more than one
Right.
solution.
Yeah, I interviewed a medical herbalist and she said, look, it's a transition and it changes as you go through it. So what you might need at this point
Yeah.
might not be what you need here.
Right.
So it's not like you're just going to go and buy a giant bottle of black cohosh and,
Yeah.
drown in it, because it might help you, but possibly you'll then need to move on. And really, the one constant is the lifestyle stuff,
Yeah, right.
which I am not as good.
What's your exercise regime, Nicky?
Well,
I walk to the
because
fridge
I
to pour a wine.
devoted to pleasure.
You're a hedonist.
I walk the greyhound, I ride my horse, I dig in the garden.
That's all good.
Those are all good
Sometimes
things,
I
yeah.
go to Pilates.
Sometimes.
And I did do spin before COVID. I quite like spin because there's like music and, a group of women. But you're all in a little room panting, and after COVID I was like...
I'm
Yeah.
exactly the same.
Yeah.
I used to do spin classes at Les Mills. And the other thing too is when we're trying to figure out what our symptoms are and things like that, and I've never talked about this in front of actual people, I've just talked about this on my podcast, but one thing I developed in December was a burning vulva, which has been really not that fun. So yeah, for the past year I've had a burning vulva, and I was like, is it menopause? And I tried lots of different things, and I've tried drugs, and the latest thing I've just started doing is pelvic floor physiotherapy, which is exactly what it sounds. I went to see a woman, and she basically put a glove on and went like this inside my vagina for about half an hour. You're allowed to laugh. It's fine. And it was just bizarre, right? This woman with her hand on my fanny for half an hour. And then she's given me this thing that's like a crank. It's like this, so that you're supposed to release the pressure points and stuff. This was I'm just trying to crank in this story because I haven't gone to a spin class since then.
So does this have a name?
It's called vulvodynia. Vulvodynia, which can affect up to 16% of people. So, of women, generally. But it's not. But I think it does affect my husband, let's put it that way. Yeah. My husband has been pretty adorable through the whole thing, actually. He just is there for snuggles and, if I could make you better. And it's a lot to have that. Some women have it that it's excruciating. And so I immediately tried Ovestin, which is estrogen cream. Oh, and it's very important to note that if you do have any issues with HRT around family histories and things like that, vaginal estrogen you can use. It makes no difference. So it's really good, because you were having UTIs, weren't you?
Yes, yeah, that
Sorry,
was
while
actually...
we're sharing?
Yeah, while we're talking about our vulvas.
Yeah.
That was actually the first thing that I had, really, which I didn't...
Realise was a symptom.
I didn't really connect it with perimenopause. And I don't think anyone ever said the word perimenopause to me
No.
when it was looked at either. But I was prescribed, I was having recurring UTIs, urinary tract infections, and then which weren't resolving with, antibiotics, and then things which felt like UTIs but actually weren't. It wasn't a UTI, but so it was this kind of irritation in the peeing area.
In the peeing area. Is that the medical term?
The urethra. That was the word. Yeah. Anyway,
it's like David Bowie moment.
That's David Bowie. Yeah. David Bowie.
Right, yeah. And then vaginal estrogen.
And that was actually in my sort of late 40s, yeah. And so what they prescribed for that, which is very effective, is the vaginal estrogen again. Yeah. Because it actually just affects all the tissues in that whole area.
Yeah, because that all it can get thin, that area of the skin.
Everything gets thin and irritated and uncomfortable.
Is it messy to use?
A little bit. There's an applicator with it, like a tampon applicator.
Yeah.
So you just. Let's just you load it up and then you sort of up there. Yeah.
Because I gave it a go for a while. It didn't work
some of the doctors do say just throw away the applicator and just use your finger. So you can do that too. But I prefer the applicator. It's just a bit easier.
Close the bathroom door, lying down on the tiles going, trying to figure it out. And then for me, right, I was like, oh, this is what it is because I'm so mired in menopause. And that's one thing, you can know too much because you start thinking, is this it, is that it, and so that's one thing to be careful of. And also know that it's not always horribly negative and all-consuming. For some people it is, but not for everybody. So one thing I get really irritated by is snake oil. So people that try and sell you, particularly like there's a herbal website and there's like 60 different things that you can buy. And I don't want to, we were saying the placebo effect is real and if it works for you, then great. But it just bothers me when there are $200 bottles of things and stuff like that. So have you come up against things like that?
There's quite a lot of people offering extremely expensive testing.
Yes.
And
like the Dutch test.
And there's another test, I think it's called the Eve test, but I might have got that wrong. And it's hundreds and thousands of dollars to basically be told what you know anyway when you're in midlife, which is that your hormones are changing. It's different if you go into early menopause. It's really important to get diagnosed because there can be health consequences of that. So if you're under 40 and you start to have changes, then you definitely do need to go for some tests. But your doctor will send you for those tests and they will be free.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one of the areas that you don't need the expensive tests. And then I think there's some super expensive supplements. But actually, when I talked to medical herbalists and homeopaths and stuff, they were saying there's a whole bunch of much cheaper things you can try first. Just things like magnesium for, sleeplessness and twitchy.
And melatonin
Melatonin actually should be cheap, but it isn't because it's a prescription drug in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of women who buy it overseas online and bring it in, but they're actually breaking the law.
Oh.
Breaking the law. Right. So you can't score it from overseas websites. You're meant to get it from your doctor, and it's not funded, so it actually is quite expensive.
And that's another hormone that will help you
And that's
sleep.
just a natural hormone. It doesn't knock you out like a sleeping pill. It just helps you establish better circadian rhythms.
Yeah, and the thing, because if you do a test for because the thing is in perimenopause, your hormones levels are going wildly, aren't they? So on a day you get one test that says this, but 2 weeks it'll be completely different.
Yeah.
So it really isn't.
It's not useful.
Yeah. And what sort of snake oily things or any points?
There's tons. There's tons and tons of things out there being marketed at women when we are vulnerable and seeking solutions.
Yeah.
I think it's a very natural human thing to want to find a solution, and it's very it's much easier to go, yes, I'm going to take this supplement, than it is to work on your diet, get your exercise, give up drinking, do all the things that we know that we should do, which will definitely make us feel better, and there's evidence to show that they do. It's kind of easy to go for these other things which are promising the world. And I see tons of this on social media now. So many things promising to shrink the belly.
Yes, I get so much shapewear.
It is all bullshit, I think.
Total bullshit.
Or at least might not be bullshit. The people's intentions might be good, but the evidence behind most of that stuff is thin to non-existent.
And also marketing it as a menopause thing,
yeah,
as opposed to just healthy eating or something like that. Like, as you say, it's tapping into when women are most vulnerable.
Really vulnerable, yeah. So I think just be careful. I mean, again, I'm not going to say don't try that stuff, and if you find something that works for you, awesome. If it's working, just keep on going and you do you. But there are many things for which the evidence is patchy, thin, or just isn't there at all.
Yeah.
And there's not, like, in terms of, particularly around hot flushes, There's no natural thing that works as well as HRT in the evidence.
Yeah.
That's documented. But there are some things that have got pretty good results.
Great, yeah. And if you want to learn more about them, you can buy one of these books. Both of these books. You have to buy both at the same time after the show. So what we are going to do now is we are going to have a little bit of a break so that you can not buy a drink. If you want to not, I was going to say Dutch courage, but Dutch test. Oh no, it's all working horribly wrong. But we are going to take some questions after the break. We're also going to come back and give you some positives around menopause because, we can get focused on those sorts of things. I think it's important to know what the symptoms are so that you can seek help and realise actually give yourself a name because diagnosis is everything and knowledge is power. But there are obviously some positives and stuff too that we're going to touch on and get some questions from the floor. So it's a 15-minute break, go and charge your glasses with some water or whatever. And can we have a big round of applause for the two Nickys so far? Thank you. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Have you had a nice interval? Excellent. People are knocking their drinks back. That's what we like to see. Nikki would like everyone to know that she is actually going to maybe have a drink later and that she's not a complete teetotal.
I feel it's important that if you see me out later and I do have a wine that you don't go, oh, she's such a hypocrite. I'm not a non-drinker. I'm just a very moderate drinker, but I do drink in social situations. Yeah. And I feel like I probably could have a drink after this.
Excellent, good. Yeah. You just have to uphold that prissy brand that you
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Joking. Yeah. So what I thought we'd start off with, what I often do in my podcast is I have a fun fact section. I've always asked women to bring fun facts about menopause and things like that. And I feel like we've potentially almost run out of menopause ones. Some fun facts, in the past they've put leeches on vaginas to cure menopause. Also clitorectomies. I know. I wonder how many of the male ailments they thought, what if we just chop their dicks off? And see if that works. Yeah, not so many. But anyway, I'm going to start with a personal fun fact. And my personal fun fact is that in 1983, I was third in New Zealand for shot put. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, I know. It's like I was 9. It was the Colgate Games, and I got a bronze medal for shot put.
Wow.
I know. And then I quit because I didn't think I had the thighs for it anymore. How wrong I was. Anyway, so do you have a personal fun fact?
I've got 2 actually.
Exciting.
One is that my real name is Domenica Pellegrino.
What? Really?
And in English that means Sunday Pilgrim.
Sunday Pilgrim.
Yeah.
Amen.
It's quite, amazing. But
that's beautiful,
my other
Dominica.
is going to bring things crashing down. I can touch my nose with my tongue.
Oh, and now we must see. I can do this. This is not very good for this sort of, but
Oh! I've never seen that before.
I'm very good at blowjobs. Anyway, it's another one of my fun facts.
I don't have anything to say now. I don't know.
Do you want to do a sewing one?
Okay. And not as fun. It's not as fun as your fun
I
fact.
think, she made this dress herself. There we go.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It fits beautifully. It's incredibly tailored. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's my thing that I like to do when I'm not in my head writing stuff. Is that little bit of creativity that I can make things. I can sew things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Creativity
I
is
enjoy
to
it.
be enjoyed.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good. And what about a women's health fun fact situation?
Well, I was going to do the leeches, but you've stolen my thunder, Penny.
Oh, sorry. We should have talked about it.
And the reason they did that was they thought that they didn't understand that menstruation stopped. They thought the blood had got stuck up there. And so, and there were other things they did as well. They did rectal ice baths to cool women down.
Rectal ice baths?
Yeah, when they were having hot flushes.
Sounds like physiotherapy. Wow.
And they thought we had to eat cooling diets, and they also thought that sort of pliant, quiet, humble women had an easier menopause than stroppy, strong women.
Go fuck yourself. Look at that. Wow. And they used to call them galloping catastrophes as well. Menopausal women were castrates,
and galloping catastrophes. Yeah, there's some other... and also, one of the things that was prescribed to help menopause was golf.
Golf?
Golf. Not for me, thank you very much. Yes.
They put a fair few of them into insane asylums also.
Yes, like there were a lot...
hysteria and
the women
mania.
of the menopausal age were the biggest groups in asylums and things like that,
Yeah.
And then when they had hysteria, they used to like try and release their pressure by stimulating them until they orgasmed.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like the earliest vibrator was about relieving hysteria. Which,
cooling her down.
what was that?
The movie's on Netflix.
Yeah. Oh, good. The movie is on Netflix. It's called Hysteria, isn't it? Yeah, the movie's on Netflix. Yeah, it's a good one. So now you've got a really fun fact about the female.
Well, semi-related actually.
Yes.
Yeah, around the clitoris, which I just read. Well, I kind of knew this, but there was an article in the New York Times just in the past week, which I think the Herald might have also picked up, and it's about the clitoris and that. Well, there's so much to talk about really, but the fact that they didn't really start studying the clitoris until the 80s, the 1980s, not the 1880s, the 1980s, and they didn't really discover until then that it wasn't just this tiny little nub. It's actually a massive organ with many, many, many nerve endings, very similar to a penis, with the same kind of sensation. And the article was actually around the fact that still now today in surgeries and in things that they do to deal with other issues in the vulva and vagina, the clitoris is overlooked and the nerve endings there are not considered, that the female pleasure is actually discounted or disregarded in favour of just getting the surgery done. And so women are losing sensation when they don't need to. And it's just bullshit, really. It's complete bullshit that women's pleasure is not as prioritised as men's is.
Yep, absolutely. And the fact that, what is the word vagina? I don't know, is there something about it being sheath as well? For me, I find that offensive, that it's seen as a sheath for the sword, as opposed to the equal part. I mean, I guess maybe I'm just being touchy. But yeah, that show often that we are the ones to just be there while they are getting their rocks off, rather than the fact that we have this incredibly complex thing that, because orgasms are pretty good.
Yeah.
Am I right?
We all deserve them. And we should know also that we don't have to stop having pleasure in sex just because of menopause or post-menopause either. It's not a given that you're going to lose that. And I think there's this narrative that for men, it's really important, if you lose your sexual function, it's a disaster if you're a man. And for a woman, it's just, it's just part of getting older.
Yeah.
That's not true.
That's also bullshit.
That's also total bullshit, yeah.
And also testosterone, you can get testosterone cream to help with libido issues. Some other people use testosterone cream for various different things, but there is less proof around that, but it is something that you can do and can get. But there's one product for females with testosterone, because actually women have more testosterone in their bodies than estrogen, I think. It's like very similar amounts. It is, I think that's science. That's a good one. I think that's science. But it's a lot more than you would think it is. Obviously, it's a lot less than men. But so that when those levels drop as well, you can actually get vulvodynia. You can get some pain in the vestibule region of the vulva if you have low testosterone. But there's something like 40 different testosterones for men, but only one for women.
Yeah, and until very recently, women, if they wanted to use testosterone, had to use a product formulated for a man and just kind of try and figure out a smaller dose, which is...
Yeah.
Because ridiculous. You don't want to take too much testosterone.
No. And what is interesting, because I have interviewed a couple of trans men for my podcast, because trans men go through male puberty and female menopause at the same time. Yeah, it's a lot. So they're getting mood, like flashes of rage and pimples and dry vaginas and hot flushes, and so it's like no one's doing that for attention, just quietly. There's a whole lot of stuff like that. But anyway, let's talk about the good things. Hooray! Let's talk about the positives of menopause. So you are the post-menopausal poster child on the stage.
You are inspiration.
So tell us, what is it like?
Well, you're not hostage to those cycles. I used to get terrible PMT. I would have a day every month where I would just kind of cry for no reason and be irrational. My moods are so much more even now. I've got more energy. I used to get terrible. If I didn't eat enough red meat, I would get anemia because my periods were really heavy. now I don't have to eat red meat unless I really want to.
Right.
So there's all of those things, the physical things, but then there's other things too. For instance, Penny,
Yes.
I now have the menopausal glare. Do you know about that?
Oh, no, but I feel like you're about to unleash it on me.
So back when I was young and comely in my 30s, I was at this party and this guy would not leave me alone. I could not get rid of him, and he was really drunk. He was following me around, and eventually I said to this older woman, "Can you help me get rid of this man?" And she just went like this. And she gave him the glare. And he sort of deflated. And then there was a sort of dullness of defeat in his eyes, and he backed away. She didn't say anything. And I looked at her and thought, that was magnificent, and one day I want to have that.
Wow.
And I have got it now. I can just give someone the glare. And if you really, really, really want to back it up, you say, in a very calm way, there's no need to use that tone with me.
I'm standing in the exact right place in the queue.
And you couldn't say that as a younger woman. People would just laugh at you.
Yeah.
But from, the menopausal woman. And I think that there is a having less fucks to give, and it is this feeling that I don't say the word I'm sorry as much anymore, because I wasn't actually sorry. And I don't feel the need to be nice to people who aren't being nice to me. Like, it's not like I'm going around being randomly rude.
Anymore.
But I don't feel the need just to be lovely. Women have got this pressure on them to be lovely, and I think all of that has come with midlife, and it's great.
Yeah. And do you feel invisible?
Well, I'm 6'1".
Yeah, true.
I don't know, just people were crashing into me a lot.
Oh.
Yeah, and
right.
I wondered if that was the sort of invisibility. I did have a moment, actually. I went to this bar in Auckland called Soul, which is where lots of very glamorous women go, because they were having this champagne special, and
my Real Housewives.
my friend and I went, let's go and have champagne at Soul, that will be fun. And we could not get served. So finally I said to the barman, who was a very young man, "Excuse me, but who do I have to fuck to get a drink in here?" I have never seen a man pour a drink faster in my life.
So you're saying he wasn't volunteering, or he was?
He really didn't want to. But we got a drink.
Wow. Because I've heard one friend that's liked being invisible, but other friends haven't liked being invisible, but then if you don't feel it. I mean, I don't know. I produce most of my own work, so I feel like I would just keep hiring myself.
I remember in my 20s getting wolf whistled by men on building sites and things, and that was kind of horrible.
Yeah.
So I don't miss that.
That never really happened to me. No. And then I was like, did I want that? But my nickname in primary school was Big Tits. And I did not like that. No. That's for sure. Yeah, right. So is that the sum of your positivities, which is all marvelous?
I might think of something later.
Okay, good. We'll come back to you. What about you?
Yeah, well, I'm not quite out the other side at this point, but I think that there's some definite positivity around the conversation that we're having now, and all of these conversations. We are now talking about this thing, which wasn't talked about
until
for centuries.
Yes, centuries.
And so I feel like we've got a lot of talking to do. We've got a lot of time to make up for.
Yeah.
And it feels powerful.
Which is true, because there has been a little bit of a backlash that I have seen, a little bit, not much, but there's been there was a woman called India Knight who wrote one in the Sunday Times that was all like, oh, this woman, my menopause was fine, why were you all talking about it? And I find that very diminishing. It's like, just because you had an easy ride. Yeah, and I've seen a little bit of that.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of it, but I just think those people can just fuck off.
Yeah.
I mean, really, we need to talk about it, and we're not apologising,
Yeah.
And
Yes,
I think
excellent.
that this is a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think just the normalising of the conversation, so just saying the word menopause in every kind of setting that you can think of, at work, in social situations, at home, with everyone, so that it becomes a normal conversation, not a tittery sort of, a little bit icky conversation. It becomes something that we just talk about, like we talk about pregnancy or puberty or any of the other normal phases of a woman's life.
Like the period poverty thing that's been addressed, and that younger women seem much less inclined to, I used to hide the tampon up my school jumper.
Did that, right?
And
why did we do that?
Yeah. I know, and then it was like, oh my God, my friend, I remember she had blood on the back of her skirt at school. And it was like, it was a girls' school, but it was like, oh no.
We've all had that too.
And of course we were all very empathetic, like nobody was judging her for it, but you have that that thing.
There's a shame that
Yeah.
has been associated with the functioning of a woman's body, and it just doesn't
I know,
have to
which
be.
is the very thing that makes people. So
But I think the talking about it thing, like when back in my 40s, I was the boss of quite a lot of women, poor things. And so I was really, really conscious that they had needs around pregnancy and childcare. But there were middle-aged women on my staff, and I never for a moment thought that they might have something going on because we didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
So I think that the conversation is really important
because the amount of women that have left jobs has been massive because
Yeah.
of menopausal symptoms, particularly when they didn't know it was menopause,
Yeah.
around anxiety. Like, well, Robin Malcolm got terrible anxiety with menopause, but this is an example of how we're still not quite there yet, and there are still some retrograde people because the producers, well, it was the network, because she just had her documentary on the television about anxiety. I don't know if anybody saw that. The reason for her anxiety was menopause, but they wouldn't let her say that on that documentary in case it alienated men. Yeah. And look, there are a lot more men here today than I thought there would be, so I'm so appreciative that you're here to learn about this because it is really important, and I found that offensive and actually ludicrous.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
That was really shocking, actually,
Yeah,
to me.
absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
So we've still got some place to go, but we are going to talk about it, and now we're going to talk about it with your lovely selves. So we're going to have some Q&A now. So, is Kerry there? Oh, no, here instead. First of all, I'd also like to say thanks to Kerry down here, who's programmed the Puka Puka Festival, part of the Nelson Festival, and asked me to come and do this. So can we have a round of applause for her? Down there, please. She also has her own podcast about death, slightly different. So look that one up as well. What's it called again?
Death Walker's Guide to Life.
The Death Walker's Guide to Life. Excellent. But we're not talking about death now, we're talking about menopause. So who's got a question? Oh, down the front here. Excellent. We're just going to bring the microphone.
So my question is, so with menopause, obviously you get the dry vagina. I'm very curious about female ejaculation and if that changes in menopause.
Wow.
If any of you happen to know anything about that.
I do not, no.
Do you like the fluid from the skiing glands, that sort of shenanigans?
Well, when, females can ejaculate.
Yeah.
And it's that beautiful fluid that comes out and the right spot's touched. And, and I'm just wondering if that changes.
I'd be guessing, but I'd say it might change just because you do produce less lubrication.
This is a very good question.
I don't know.
Yes.
Do you know?
I don't know.
No, but also I feel like congratulations as
Yeah.
well.
I'd like to.
I may have been known to do that from time to time myself, so yes, it's actually really fucking great. I've never said that to anybody in public before. Look at that, right?
Well, all bets are off now, right?
Yeah, all bets are off. Right, let's go. Anybody else want to talk about the vaginal crank? Right, up here.
The question I had for you is because I have a very lovely husband and a dad, and I have 2 sons. And what I've got from them is a frustration that they actually are quite happy often to know. And they sort of want to know. And we're the ones who don't tell them. We're the ones who don't always have, maybe we don't want to, or we don't have the courage to tell them what's going on a monthly basis. And I still have that problem because I went to a convent school. So I actually really struggle to talk about it, not because I don't think my husband or even my boys want to know, but because I personally don't want to talk. And I wondered whether that's part of the problem, is that we need to stop assuming that they don't want to know. And actually we might find out, and sometimes I have to say to my husband, that's enough. I don't want to tell you anymore. You may want to know more, but I actually don't want to talk about it anymore, because he does want to understand what's going on, but we don't know how to have those conversations. So that's what I was going to put to you, is whether you've come across that before and whether you have any idea as to how we can actually engage the men and maybe find out that not all of them, but maybe more of them than we realize actually want to. And part it's because they don't want us to go as often as we
Yeah, I mean, it's how you put it. It's like, is this your hormones is not the way.
Yeah.
But do you have any insight into that?
My husband really, really doesn't want to know. It's it's like I'm trying to give him the score of a rugby match he hasn't yet watched. He's just like, no, listen. When I was researching the book, I did come across women whose husbands were forensically interested in the whole process. And like you, they felt really uncomfortable and they sort of just didn't want to kind of give it all up. So I guess what I think is generally, if there was more conversation about it, it doesn't have to all come from you. Generally, if there was more written and just more out there, then they would pick that up from all those other places.
And so Google is their friend.
More noise. Well, I guess just,
But then they want to know about you. But the more we're talking about it, the less, like if it's just something that just everyone knows.
Doesn't have to be a big mystery.
Yeah, and what about any insights?
Every time I do a corporate talk now on it, there are men, either I do them as webinars or in person, there are men there, and I think that's awesome, you know. And the men are really interested. They want to know, and they always ask questions. They are actually engaged with the topic. I think we probably, as you've alluded to, we don't give them enough credit probably for being empathetic and interested.
I actually did a speech to Parliament, as you do, on menopause. I zoomed into Parliament when I was locked in my house, and there were, I think Damien O'Connor was there. There were a few male MPs in there, and I thought that was great that they were actually in Parliament going to see this thing with, like, the Minister for Women and Jan Logie and people like that, and them in there too. So that was great.
Yeah. I did a survey actually of women for the book. I surveyed 330 women and asked them about their experiences of menopause. And I did ask, what would you like men to know about menopause? And the number one thing actually that women said was be kind. Yeah. They're just empathy.
Empathy for everything.
Yeah, having some empathy, just being there. Again, we don't need you to solve our problem for us. Yeah. We don't need you to do the forensics. We actually just need you to be there and
put the HRT
be
on.
Understanding.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Oh, kia ora. I would like to know, you mentioned before that HRT, you can take that up till 10 years after you've had your last period. So when do you know that menopause is ended? Or do you have menopause until you die? Is that...
That's a really common question, right? So, I mean, everyone's different, hey?
Everyone's different, but it doesn't typically go on until you die. No.
Depends what you are postmenopausal, but hopefully you don't have the symptoms.
Postmenopause is a phase that goes on until for the rest of your life, but you shouldn't have most people don't have symptoms. It's 2 to 10 years.
My mother actually is breaking all of these rules because she went on HRT recently. She's 76, but she doesn't have a womb, and that makes it better. Like if you take HRT outside of that 10 years after your last period,
you don't have to come off it, by the way.
No, you don't.
That 10 years is not you don't have to come off HRT.
Like Peter Mathias is your friend, and is like, you will take it from my cold dead hands.
Well, the oldest woman I spoke to was 80, and she was still on it, and she was still working, and looked amazing, and very fit, and she felt that the hormones were contributing to her being in such good shape.
Asta's like that too. Asta used to be on Good Morning. I used to do stuff on Good Morning with Asta. I did gossip and she arranged the flowers, among many other things, and she's the same. She's like, I will, and she changed doctors and had a fight with the doctor because she was like, no, this is mine.
Yeah, the old advice used to be that you were only to be on it for the shortest possible time.
The lowest dose for the shortest time.
But that advice is out the window now, and really you can stay on it for as long as you need to be on it. So if you come off HRT and you're still having symptoms, then
just go back on.
You would go back on because your menopause is not over. If you come off it and you're having no symptoms, then you're through and you're free and clear and you're out the other side.
And the other thing is, which has been great, because one thing we haven't actually touched on is the whole equity issue, which is around women who can't afford tickets to come to podcasts or time off from all of their children, or the cost it goes to a menopause specialist, etc. But what the government, Pharmac has just done is funded Utrogestin, which is micronized progesterone. So if you have a womb and you have HRT, you should also take progesterone. And now that they're funding that now, so it's made it so much more accessible to people. So that is a fantastic thing that has just happened in the menopause space. That way. More questions?
Like you, Penny, I've got big hooters, and I noticed since I've been on HRT that they've gotten bigger.
Oh, have
and
they?
that's one downside for me, because I don't want them to be any bigger.
I wouldn't mind that.
To know if that will ever. I mean, is it just going to go on and on and on, or is there an end to that? Or
You come with a wheelbarrow.
I love being on HRT, but I don't like that side effect of it.
Yeah.
Actually, my breasts have got bigger and I'm not on HRT. So, and I have heard women say that in midlife their breasts get bigger. I can't explain to you why.
Oh, so you mean it's probably not even the
It might not
HRT,
be
it
the
might just be
HRT, yeah.
being
Are they
older.
sore? Because you know how sometimes they
No,
get...
I mean they've sort of filled out. But
Yeah.
I
Wow.
feel like I'm at my gynecologist here.
Put your feet up here, love. Yeah. Yeah, like, oh my God, I don't want this to get any bigger. Jesus Christ. Sorry. Mine are double G cups, which I think stands for good God! Check out the tits on that one. Did we have somebody up here with a question? Oh, right at the back up there?
So I'm just curious about when you'd advise to start on hormone replacement therapy, especially if it was like early perimenopause.
I mean, we should both say that we're not doctors.
Yes, I should have said that at the beginning.
So it's everyone's different. So it's driven by symptoms. Like if your symptoms are interfering with your quality of life, if you're feeling like things are a bit shit, it's just things are not right, then that might be a good time to see if HRT is right for you.
Yeah.
Try it, or ask if you should be trying it. The thing I wanted to just circle back to too, we were talking about the list of symptoms before and all the different symptoms. It's actually really important not to self-diagnose and not to go straight to perimenopause for all of the things, because there's so many things on those lists, and there's gut symptoms, and there's palpitations like you were talking about, Nikki, and there's all these things which can have quite serious causes that might not be menopause.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to say that if anything is not right in your body for you, that doesn't feel right, get it checked out properly first to make sure it's not some of those other things.
Yeah, because I was having some chest pains and I wasn't sure. My dad's got stents and things, so I went and got an ECG, yes. And one of the things I had to do was run on a treadmill without a bra. And I was
Why
like,
without a bra?
well, because you have all the things stuck to you.
Oh, okay.
But I was like, basically, what the fuck? This sort of stuff. And so they gave me a compression bandage. So I looked like a sausage with a tank top, like this is like running on the thing. So yeah, it was like there were a few earthquakes found in the Waitakere hospital region. But yes, do we have any other?
Actually, I've got a thing to say about that as well, that I think there's a move at the moment in the UK to almost say every woman should be on HRT. And that is not the case. I think it's irresponsible to suggest that. Some women need it and really benefit from it. Some women don't need it. Why would you it's like taking a paracetamol without having a headache. Why would you do that?
Sometimes I do wonder about the prophylactic thing though with HRT, like if you know it's going to help your bones and your brain and and things like that. So I can sort of see that.
It's not recommended though for any of those things. Like even the dementia thing that the International Menopause Society just released a white paper on that a few days ago.
Right.
And they are saying that there's no evidence to say that this is going to prevent dementia.
Right.
So they're not recommending it for prevention of anything, really.
But it does, because I know both of you have actually said before that perimenopause can feel like it's actually happening by stealth. Like you haven't noticed, but then all of a sudden you have these things. But yes, I mean, to me, it was like, because I haven't had very many symptoms at all, but it was like, my doctor said, do you want to think about HRT when I wasn't sure about the source of this burning? I did a show called Hot Pink Bits once and another one called The Burning Sensations. So I put it on myself. Anyway, and I was like, oh no, like I feel like I need to have my life affected to a point where it's clearly from these symptoms before doing that. So yeah, was there some hands up over here? Okay, lucky last.
Kia ora. There's been a lot of talk about HRT, and as someone who's not able to take any kind of hormonal replacement therapy, my mother just got through the menopause, and I'm kind of hoping I don't have to do that. So what other options are there to support it if it is a tough process?
There are some other drugs that you can take. I think gabapentin is one of them. And there's another one, the name of which has just gone out of my head.
Oh, is it clonidine they give? There's actually tons, and I would recommend both of these. Because it kind of depends on what's going on for you, right?
Yeah.
So whatever the symptom that's the worst or the most problematic for you, then there will be something that you can do that's not a drug.
Yeah,
sure,
and there's sections to refer back to. Like I read the vagina section quite a lot, though I actually don't think it was applicable to me ultimately, but it was great to be able to go back and look at that and see with that sort of thing. Because yes,
there's a whole range of things, and they don't always end with HRT. There's lots and lots of other things, including some natural therapies and some not things that you take, actually, like treatments, different kinds of treatments.
Yeah, there's evidence for hypnosis, I think, which is interesting.
Yeah, and there's that ganglion block that they do, which is to do with the nerves in the back of the neck for flushes, which is very effective. Like that's actually a procedure that you can have. So there's quite a lot of things.
Does Botox work? Because Botox works for sweating.
I don't know anything about Botox.
No, I suppose that's not about, that's actually a symptom of being hot as opposed to stopping you being hot, is sweat.
Yeah, because it's the action of the estrogen on your brain.
Yeah.
So you don't want to Botox your brain.
No. But will it make me look pretty? Okay, so I think that's going to be our last question. And I want to say, yes, I am not a doctor, but I was a doctor on Shortland Street for 3 episodes. You probably were going, that's how we know her. It was in 2000, I was in 3 episodes, and I was a gynecologist. So there you go.
Well, you're basically more qualified than a lot of the people on Instagram.
Okay, great. So these ladies are going to be up there selling these books afterwards, available for signings and things like that. I would like to say, can we have a massive round of applause for both of them for coming on? And I was going to say a massive applause for Kerry, but she looks like she might say something. But I will just say, Showy Ovaries, now you can go and listen to the rest of them. Yeah. So this is the 60th one. There's 2 seasons. I've got so many fantastic women and a couple of trans individuals, and I cried in one. Probably a couple. Anyway, it's just been an absolute privilege to talk to people about this transition and to celebrate women of whatever age, and that we are not old and we're all fucking fantastic. Because one thing I actually have taken is a lot of internal shame around bodies. And we just need to shake that shit out and just realise how fabulous we all are. And here's a fabulous lady right now.
Well, I just wanted to say a huge big thank you to you, Penny. This was just amazing. And I'm very grateful you could come. And thank you both to the Nickys as well. And I want to do a big shout out to our team here today, because we've got Nick and Sam who have been looking after all the tech here, and our wonderful volunteers. So big round of applause to our volunteers and our teams. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Play the outro music, sir, please.